So kind of looking at the future and beyond, or 2024 and beyond. We're looking to continue a lot of the expanded bandwidth that we have done on the ceiling side, and actually looking to expand that to more of the non-Navy owned vessels. So for Langseth, Endeavor, and Rank Explorer, actually looking to do some level of expansion on those as well. For next budget year, we're really putting more of the funding on the Navy side for the Navy-owned vessels, so that we can use more NSF funds to benefit more vessels. Mentioned it a little bit previously, but leased equipment projects will continue with the last two vessels getting their replacement hardware. Also looking to continue the Iridium service project. And as the rest of the fleet gets Starlink, one of the real things we're looking at is how much longer do we continue to run Fleet Express on vessels? One of the initial steps we're looking at taking is we are on flexible rate plans, so we can pretty much reduce the CIR that we're buying from those systems to actually cover the cost of Starlink. We also have a number of the existing contracts we have on Fleet Express all expire in June, July of 2027. There's also a number of games we can play as far as suspending contracts. In addition to just turning down the rate plans, we can suspend those contracts for about half the life of the contract. So especially for vessels where there hasn't been a lot of suspensions, it's as we see Starlink operate more reliably, we pretty much expect to get to a point next summer where we can actually start suspending those plans for extended periods of time. If they're not being used, no point ripping the equipment off the vessel right away, but definitely want to be in a situation where we can quickly revert if we need to, but no point in paying for systems that are just sitting there with limited use. One of the other projects we've got in the ARF for firewall replacements might change that methodology a little bit as far as being able to better classify traffic and determine what we want to push off onto different systems compared to what we've been doing with some of our peplink routers, where it's Starlink is the best, that's where everything's going to go. But by and large, we're not looking to run 3 systems on ocean and global vessels. Your primary and your backup is enough. Definitely for a lot of the smaller vessels where Fleet Express is the only system traditionally. As we add Starlink, one of the things we're looking at is putting a service on those vessels to be that emergency connectivity, similar to what we had in the past with Fleet Broadband, and provide voice services where Starlink does not provide any voice services at all, short of whatever you're running on your own, from your cell phones with VoIP or campus solutions. The Starlink project will continue, and by and large, as that as SpaceX continues to refine what they're doing, definitely no guarantees that the prices we're paying today, the level of coverage we're getting today, the level of service we're getting today will continue. That's a big unknown. So not looking to ditch Fleet Express and fully rely on SpaceX today. But you know, as we see more operations and sustained operations, we'll be able to make that call with some flexibility. So definitely some other promising LEO systems on the horizon. OneWeb's been around for a few years, but a lot of what's changed recently. They've definitely launched a lot more of their constellation. I think previously they were only providing service above 50 or 60 degrees.
50, I think.
Yeah, that's now down to 30 degrees. So they're definitely covering a lot more of the world. Unlike Starlink, OneWeb's actually doing a polar orbit, so it's North Pole, South Pole. They've actually got enough satellites now that they, as they're approaching the poles and going over the poles, they actually have to shut down some of the satellites to limit how many options there are in the sky because it was becoming too many. Definitely getting to a point where we're starting to see enough that constellation deployed where it does become an option for more and more vessels. The other big change, I mentioned earlier that the GX antennas we had could be converted for KU bucks. So some of the original intention that we had when getting those domes was a system like this in the future, we could retrofit those domes to be the two domes that are kind of chasing these satellites in the sky. Similar to Starlink, they have come out with a flat panel phased array antenna. A little bit bigger than a pizza box, but the big advantage on this one is, you know, definitely a reduction in the amount of hardware required and moving parts. This antenna was just released in September, but single flat panel antenna. They have dual antenna versions available as well. I'm not sure what the second antenna is for other than redundancy, but the footprint of these is becoming a lot more appealing, and definitely something we're looking to do some testing on. The big difference with OneWeb compared to Starlink is you actually can get commit information rates, and you know, some of the speeds here that are being advertised as far as commit information rates, especially on the uplink side. You know, you're getting into ranges where it definitely becomes a better option for live streaming of video off ships. You know, we haven't done any testing with it yet, but Starlink, where you kind of got that variable, maybe 5 megs, maybe more, maybe less. Would we want to do any live video streaming off of a vessel to the internet? We can try it, but probably not. With a commit information rate system like this, you know, that becomes more of an option. The one downside with OneWeb, their current satellites in space, they don't have any satellite-to-satellite communication built in. So a lot of deep ocean, South Pacific, where they don't have ground stations, there isn't going to be any route back to the internet. Two other LEO MEO systems that are kind of on the horizon as well. Amazon Kuiper, somewhat similar to Starlink in the aspect that not necessarily expected to have a lot of CIR, but they're definitely talking speeds in the gigabit range. They're again similar to SpaceX. Probably expect that to be more on the download side, with upload significantly less. They've actually had a number of delays and are pretty much just launched their first 2 satellites into space for testing. They pretty pretty much have through the end of next year to get about half their constellation deployed if they want to stay in compliance with their current SEC license. So definitely a lot of reasons for them to pick it up, but and a lot of delays on deployment of that constellation. Also, less defined how much that'll be more of a residential home internet / land-based business. At this time, any maritime-based is speculation. Another big one, O3B mPOWER, is a medium Earth orbit system, and this one really, they're looking at speeds in the multi-gigabit range. They really had a focus on, airplanes, vessels with more known tracks where they can actually kind of beam steer and follow those assets as they go across the ocean. We're looking for opportunity and cruise lines where it's a lot of near shore known routes. Looking for opportunities to test this, but it's definitely going to be a question of, where we're looking at not necessarily going to a lot of the more popular places, so to speak, from a research vessel standpoint. How much they'll really have the coverage in places where we're going until we get their constellation deployed. I'll take questions at this point. Good night. 2 minutes, 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Yeah.
Those downlink speeds that you mentioned for Starlink, you had to change your radar policies to account for that difference. Able to load balance or make the
No, I mean, for the most part, from a peplink perspective, the way a lot of our routing was set up, especially on vessels where we already had expansions, the latency is so much less on Starlink. In some cases, you're looking at 50 milliseconds or less. That peplink does detect that is the best route regardless of speed, and it's making that choice automatically. Where it really becomes an issue is more when you're trying to be more nuanced in it and say, okay, I really want to push all this other stuff off to other systems. Yes.
So the issue we had for UC San Diego ships in particular is IT security came back and said we had to VPN everything through Starlink with data exfiltration risk. And so that created a circumstance where the peplink is just not going to adapt well if you're trying to film everything, multiple links, and having wildly discrepant latencies. So that on the SIO ships in particular, that created, I think, kind of binary choice scenario at this time.
Yep, and yeah, definitely for University of Alaska Fairbanks too, fairly similar. Both them and SIO are tunneling all their traffic back to the home institution. So yeah, it's those tunnel choices. They could have multiple tunnels set up. It's pretty much leveraging the tunnel that is. Yeah.
I just recently installed the flat hat performance Starlink on the server myself. And so when you did your test on the Rebel and then with the Star Shield, I was just curious which plans did you have, the 1 terabyte a month, 5 terabyte, and then did you have to limit the speeds to be able to spin that out over the entire month?
Yep.
How many people, how many devices using Starlink?
Yeah, so for the most part, all the plans that we're getting are 5 terabyte plans. We've only had.
You can't get Starshield below 5 terabytes.
Yeah. So Starshield itself, I'm actually trying to remember if you can get 1 terabyte plan with Starshield or not. But
Well, so it's changing because the resellers are changing.
yeah.
And so they're actually even offering, resellers are offering throttle capability to each individual antenna. But that's, you get ready to pay, you get paid up to 40%.
To answer the rest of your question, from the script side, we did throw some throttling on our peplink on Sprout just to make sure that we theoretically wouldn't go over that 5 terabyte maximum. So we did some initial throttling, had kind of increased that a few times just based on what we're actually seeing in usage. We won't, fleet-wide, with what's deployed so far, we've really only had Ravel go over. That's the only vessel we've actually had exceed that 5 terabyte monthly.
Do you remember the average, daily use of the day?
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
It's lunchtime, and I think we have lots of questions, and I think we could have lots of announcements, but I'm gonna just say cut and run, go eat. We'll be back in an hour, 1 o'clock local on the hour for everyone remote. I did have something I wanted to say and I forgot. Oh, I remember. Engage with the community boards. I don't know if you guys noticed, there's like 5 job postings on there, and I haven't created a group for every single presentation that we have, but it's easy to create your own and keep the conversation going. So thank you, and we'll be back in an hour. Oh, lunch is in the Pomeria room, across the hall. That's what you need to know.